So must say possibilities. First of all, how could people help on the home front? There are so many different things people could do. They could write songs, they could write movies, they could give blood, they could pray, they could cut out their luxuries. Absolutely rationing where it was really hard to get a hold of sugar and gasoline, etc. Had to use the ration coupons. The clothing styles changed. No cuffs or pleats in skirts or pants. Smaller lapels. People collected milkweed pods in school for life vests. And of course, kids could help so much on the home front, especially high school kids, giving up their yearbooks, or as said already, donating blood, but recycling, salvaging. They could grow victory gardens and babysit and buy bonds. These are ways that people could help on the home front. Even Hollywood stars went out on bond drives, etc. Norman Rockwell did art to reflect the unity of the war effort. So many different ways that people could help on the home front. All right, products that were improved. There were so many different things as shown Spam and television, of course, radar and instant coffee. We have Jeeps, computers, macaroni and cheese. These are all things that are developed or improved for the war. I think some major ones that impact our lives even today, radar. It's used for weather in the era, and it's used for weather now too, so that you could have it's National Weather Awareness Week. So anyway, that would be really that's important thing. It was at first used for shipping and now used for weather, but important in battles as well. M&Ms, I don't know if they impact my daily life, but those are really important and developed for the war effort. Instant coffee, keeping those people at war and those rosy the riveters awake. And of course, we're using computers right now. So the early development of computers for knowledge would be, or excuse me, for study of data, so that you have knowledge about various and sundry ballistics methods and codes. So that would be really, really important. Those are just a few things. Refrigerated trucks would be really important as well to preserve medicines and blood. Causes and effects of World War II. There are so many different causes, and of course, you can look back at the ism words: isolationism, militarism, nationalism, terrorism. We have the rise of demagogues during the Great Depression. That would be really important. We have people looking back in the 1920s under the Warden Harding administration, where we wanted to get to back to a sense of normalcy. Isolationism, the fear of being dropped into another conflict, and the fear of alliances, and that kind of we're like ostriches putting our heads in the sand, not realizing that it's a global society after World War I. So major causes. Effects of the war. Of course, there are so many effects of World War II. We'll start off with the devastating loss of about 57 million people. And of course, that's give or take. I mean, such major groups losing, our countries losing gigantic parts of their population. We had the Chinese and the Russians, which are so close to Japan, and losing so very many people. Um, and of course, the United States got out in effect. We came out as a superpower. Our homeland wasn't too very impacted. Germany was divided into four different zones. Japan was occupied after the war. Of course, there were a lot of refugees. There's the discovery of the Holocaust. These are all effects of the war, and so many others as well. Why were so many people willing to reject democracy and turn to dictators? Well, we definitely have in the 1930s, we have, well, even as back as far as the 20s with Mussolini, we have the situation where we have a limitation of the freedom of press, and Mussolini was able to control the press in Italy, and then publish what he wanted on his radio stations and newspapers. And so anyway, controlling the media, we can certainly draw correlations to the Vietnam War and even to the present regarding that. But anyway, we have the Great Depression, the stock market crash in 1929, which led a lot of people to lose their life savings. And so what they did, they listened to people that were demagogues, people like Mussolini and Franco, and people like Tojo, and listened to people like Hitler, who were saying things they wanted to hear and establishing pride and nationalism back in their countries, when people are kind of down and out, when they're losing their homes and their businesses and their life savings. And so people are willing to listen. Some of these, as mentioned already, we have Benito Mussolini of Italy, who led the fascist black shirts, and we have Hitler of Germany, who led the fascist brown shirts in Italy, in Germany, in Hirohito and Tojo in Japan, who had very fascist expansionists, and of course, we have Francisco Franco, who was officially neutral during the war, but he allowed Hitler and Mussolini to um, practice using their men and weapons, and people then. Not all of these people survived the war. Franco lived until 1975. Um, Stalin could be thrown in there as well, but he lived until 1953. But I will say that Mussolini and Hitler and Tojo did not survive the World War II era. All right, moving on to what were causes and effects of the Holocaust. There are so many different causes, but to this point in world history, there had been an acceptance of anti-Semitism way back as far as we know in the Middle Ages, and then coming off of that, there's a lot of some causes for the Holocaust would be the propaganda against the European Jewry by Hitler, and he wrote a book called Mein Kampf, My Struggles, when he spent some time because of the Beerhout Putsch in jail, and talking about blaming or scapegoating the Jewish population. Uh, uh, um, let's see, there were 12 million people that perished because of the Holocaust. 6 million of those are Jewish people. Other disenfranchised groups would include like Jehovah's Witnesses, ministers, Roman Catholic, Lutheran ministers, people that were political dissidents who questions Hitler's authority, and what can we learn for the future from this tragic event is stand up, stand up would be very important to be able to question the leaders and make sure that that their motives are not selfish in this regard. Okay, number six, what were some of the challenges faced by the U.S. disenfranchised communities during World War II? Describe the impacts and contributions. We talked about five groups, and we'll start with the American Indians. American Indians were forced onto reservations, and this group didn't have a lot of economic opportunities during the war. Many of the young men got a chance to join in the U.S. military, and some of them were in the Signal Corps. They worked as code talkers. There were 13 different languages that I know of for sure that were used in World War II, where the codes were. The codes for or these languages were a code because they were not usually spoken by people who did not live in the American Indian community, and so being able to uh, use these as codes in the Pacific, in particular the Navajo, and then in European theater we have the Comanche. In North African theater, other languages are used. Close to home, we have the Lakota that was used in war, and so having had this classified military information with these unbreakable codes um, helped the effort, especially in the Pacific, but otherwise as well. And American Indians as well were able to move off the reservations if they wished it and move to the coast for war work. Other disenfranchised communities, Japanese Americans suffered a lot during the war. They, because of their ethnic background, they might have been viewed as saboteurs or people that would, there was a great deal of paranoia and hysteria about how these Japanese Americans, especially on the West Coast, could be spies. And so they were forced into internment camps in the western part of the United States, in eastern Washington and Arizona, New Mexico, etc. Japanese Americans would fight in segregated in units in Europe and proved themselves valiantly. They served as interpreters and translators in the Pacific, and of course, we had the language school right here in Minnesota. Another disenfranchised community would be African Americans. There were positives and negatives to their World War II experience. Many people left the South and came to work in the war industries, which gave them other opportunities, but led to some segregation and discrimination. And then in the European theater and the Pacific theater, we have African Americans serving valiantly, hundreds of thousands of them, however, in segregated units, oftentimes in jobs that were menial tasks. All right. With Mexican Americans, we have um, they also had problems and opportunities. We had the Braceros programs, which brought workers from Mexico into the United States to work in the farm fields and harvesting and in factories, etc. But they're kind of expected to go back as well. It led to the Zoot Suit riots, which is a style of clothing in the era where young Hispanic men often wore these, and they were discriminated against because of their clothing, but probably more so because of their ethnic backgrounds. And these riots took place in 1943 in Los Angeles between U.S. Navy personnel and people wearing the zoot suits. So anyway, that was a negative situation there. 17 Mexican Americans earned the Congressional Medal of Honor, and we do have the Fair Employees the FEPC, who helped to stop discrimination against both African Americans and Mexican Americans. And of course, women being the biggest group of people because it makes up half the populations, they experienced a lot of great opportunities coming out of the Great Depression. They established a sense of pride and self-worth. It helped to gain them more as far as votes went, and they traveled to the coast. They raised families, and they did this a lot of times on their own because the men in their lives might be off fighting in war. And so anyway, women had so many great opportunities, and then after the war, they were kind of expected to go back to their same old jobs and way of life where they were not the head of household, but that wasn't just going to stay that way. So anyways, created some change for women. All right, number 7, name the 3 U.S. presidents who served during World War II. Okay, well, we start with when Manchuria was invaded in 1931. We have Herbert Hoover. He had more time. He needed more time to worry about the Great Depression. So anyway, we had lots of treaties that were signed, but nothing was set in stone to besides boycotts of Japanese goods and freezes on the Japanese assets. There wasn't a whole lot done in during Hoover's time as president. While Roosevelt was president, of course, we have the attack on Pearl Harbor, and he said, this is a day that shall live in infamy. He was in the he helped to sign the Atlantic Charter, and in Newfoundland with Churchill to pledge that after the war there would be a United Nations and there wouldn't be territorial expansion. All right, Franklin Roosevelt said that this will be a day that will live in infamy, and we got involved in World War II. He went to Casablanca Conference. He went to the Turin Conference, and he helped to work with Churchill and Stalin, other leaders of the Allied powers, to be able to set a course for the ending of the war and of World War II. Unfortunately, he died on April 12th of a cerebral hemorrhage, and so he didn't finish out the war. So that brings us to president number 33, Harry S. Truman. Harry S. Truman had been vice president just for 10 weeks, so he was coming into a lot of new challenges, and his big challenge, of course, was, all right, the war came to an end, victory in Europe on May 8th, 1945, which was, by the way, his birthday. And now he had to concentrate his forces, the Allied forces, towards victory in Japan, which came about on August 15th, 1945. But he had to make the decision of whether to invade, which would cost the lives of, 500,000, a million service people from the United States, and how many Japanese casualties, or to drop the atomic bomb. And he decided that it was common sense to drop the atomic bomb, and so the atomic bomb was dropped first on Hiroshima on August 6th, and then on August 9th at Hiroshima. Describe the leaders, locations, and importance of 3 major battles in World War II. I would say that some major battles would include the Battle of Midway, which is sort of the turning point. It's in June of 1942 and was led by Chester Nimitz. In this Battle of Midway, the Japanese lost 4 aircraft carriers, so a really big turning point at this. We do have the invasion of Normandy, which was it's D-Day, Operation Overlord, in June 6, 1944. This is major because we have mainland Germany, or excuse me, mainland Europe being invaded, and Germany was surrounded on 3 sides. In North Africa, of course, in October of 1942, we have the Battle of El Alamein, and this protected the Suez Canal and vital supplies of oil. I hope this helps.